Hello, fellow rebels. I have some bad news for you. Uh, we have lost a fur baby, our last fur baby, Buddy, the one that was you heard in the videos, has passed early this week. His health was declining rapidly for the past 6 months, and it was time. Um, we are saddened at this time, and he was our last fur baby, and we are going to be waiting a while before we even decide to get another animal. Okay, so this week's videos are going to be pretty quick. This is my only day off from work to be able to video this and edit it and get everything out on the, YouTuberverse. So we're going to do some roasted vegetables and what I call dump soup. It's basically everything that I've canned into a soup. But I am going to make some dinner rolls that are actually made with pumpkin. So hopefully you'll be able to take a take notes if this is something that you're interested in. I'm kind of proud of the pumpkin rolls. I saw this on a video once a long time ago, and I've continued making it ever since. I love them. Now, first things first, I've already cut up some acorn squash. We're going to use some Brussels sprouts that I canned. These are the shishito peppers that I froze, and some onion and some raisins. Now, you want to soak your raisins for a little bit in some warm water for about 10-15 minutes because you are going to roast these. It's going to need some moisture in them depending on how dry the raisins are. Okay, so here we have the acorn squash cut up in about 1 inch by 1 inch. We're going to coat this with oil. A nice, good olive oil will do. I'm also going to do it with the onions and the Brussels sprouts. This will help roast everything. Now, let's go ahead and put some oil on all of this. You're going to want to massage it a little bit. Easier on the tray. We're going to roast these all at once. Grease. Sorry about that. So we're going to go ahead and do a little bit of the shishito peppers. Give it a little bit of a heat. Now your Brussels sprouts you want to drain. Try to get as much of the water off as possible. And also you want to drain the raisins. No measurements. Just what you think you would like. And you want to mix this all up, and then we're going to add the herbs and salt. You must have salt on this. Now I'm going to put in some garlic powder, onion powder, a little bit of rosemary. Rosemary will go good with this. Here's my rosemary. Garlic powder. Lots of garlic powder. And onion powder. Again, mix it up and then put it in the oven. Uncovered. You want it to actually roast and kind of dehydrate itself. Okay. Okay, so now that you have it all nice and mixed up, you want it to roast at 350 until it's done. I don't have a time for this. Depending on how thick this can get, it can take anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour. So just keep an eye on it. Okay, now that that is in the oven, we're going to go ahead and start the rolls. And then after that, we'll do the soup. It's really simple, really easy. Because we've already mainly canned and cooked everything else, it should not take more than 20 minutes to be able to get it done. Okay, so a basic roll recipe will be flour, eggs, some sort of leavening like yeast or baking powder. We're using baking powder because a lot of yeast is wheat-based that I know of. There is also a moisture, some sort of moisture, like buttermilk or water or whatnot. There's also fat in it. Now we're going to be using regular butter along with, and it's going to be melted. I don't do the thing for cut biscuits that uses regular lard or butter as solid. These are not those type. These are the ones that you can like put in a muffin tin and make like biscuits that way. So let's get started with that, okay? Okay, now that this is nice and mushy, we'll go ahead and add everything else. Okay, for this, we're going to add 3 eggs, 1 stick of butter, and that's the butter for softening. 1 stick of butter, about 1.5 teaspoons of baking soda, and the rest we're going to go ahead and add the flour in 1/2 cup at a time until it gets to a good dough consistency. Okay, and this is about 1/2 cup-ish of butter, about a stick of butter. Now what we want to do is we want to go ahead and add the baking soda. 1 to 1.5 teaspoons. Eyeball it. See which one works better for you. I'm also going to add 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Now for these biscuits, I want to go ahead and do a mixed flour. We're going to go ahead and use coconut flour and almond flour. Coconut flour is a little bit thinner and has a little bit sweeter taste to it, so you don't have to actually add any sweeteners to this because it's all in this. Okay, about 1/2 cup of coconut flour. You can already see it thickening up. I don't know if you can see that. Let's see if we can do this here. Ah. There we go. Hopefully this thing doesn't tip over. And we're going to do about half at a time. So that's 1/2. One cup of almond flour so far. We'll add one more. Because you want to kind of get it kind of dry. Now that this is done mixing, then we're going to go ahead and get the cups ready. I'll go ahead and take this off, clean everything up. Let that rest for a minute. Now that we have the rings on here, we're going to go ahead and put the paper cups, like we did before, in each of these. No need to grease. No need to clean up any muffin pans. Okay, and you want to go ahead and spoon the mixture into here. Now you want to put these into an oven, 350, for about 15 to 20 minutes. Check on them after 15 minutes. If they need more time, go ahead and do that. Do the toothpick method. You want to? I'll show you what that is after these are done. All right, so now that we have the both trays in the oven right now, we're going to start the soup. Now, this is mostly canned. We're going to go ahead and use, for this one, the turkey broth. This one I actually canned in November of 20. November of 20, if you can see that. Hold on. November of 20. And we're going to go ahead and use this up so we can utilize the other chicken broth that we just did this year. Or last year. It's 2022 now. Thanksgiving of 2021. Okay, so first things first, we're going to need a pot big enough for this. Remember, we're going to be pretty much eating this for a few days. So, depends on how much you want to eat. We're going to go ahead and open up the turkey broth. I'm going to put this on medium because we don't want it to burn or scorch. At least not initially. Actually, let's turn it up a little bit more. Now I'm going to be using a half a gallon or 2 quarts of turkey broth. Okay, and it's fat and all. Anything that was canned in there went in here. You can actually add turkey meat to this if you want. I'm actually going to add some pork strips to give it a little bit more of a chewy feeling whenever you're eating it, because I want this to have large pieces. More like a stew than anything else, but it's still soup. Okay, we're going to go ahead and add 2 tablespoons of ground ginger. One whole tablespoon of minced garlic. About a teaspoon of mustard seed. Now, what we're doing with this is we're just flavoring the stock. One anise star. 1 stick of cinnamon, small stick, not a really big one. And we'll be fishing those things out of the soup before we add the vegetables. About a half a teaspoon of, I'm putting in ancho pepper. Ancho pepper. Very nice medium heat. And again, some cardamom pods. About a teaspoon worth. Remember, these are small. They're tiny, tiny. And about 1/8 of a teaspoon of ground cloves. Because that stuff spreads a lot. Now, one thing that I did mention in my previous video is that we have a lot of staghorn sumac in the area. It is not the poisonous sumac. Poison sumac has white berries. Staghorn sumac has red berries. It actually has a kind of like a smoky citrus flavor to it after you process everything. And it grows wild here. Now, I do forage. This year I foraged for mullein, for teas, for whenever everybody has, sinus issues. There's also feverfew. No, not feverfew. Goldenrod. I want feverfew. I am actually getting seeds for feverfew. Goldenrod grows wild here. That is perfect for teas for like infections. Like if you have a viral infection, it actually helps calm down the bacterial infections that you get secondary while you have the viral infection. And then there is also the sumac. Sumac is strictly culinary that I know of. It is red in color, and they do come with about 1 billion seeds. So if anybody wants seeds, let me know. And I'm going to do about a tablespoon of this in here, or no, teaspoon. A teaspoon of this in here because I like staghorn sumac. It also gives it a nice red flavor for the broth. Now, one thing I do grow that I like to use every once in a while, not so much, is lemongrass. Now, lemongrass is a grass. It gets about 4 or 5 feet tall. Has that lemon flavor to it. And I use it for teas and soups. General flavoring. We'll add a few of those in there. Now, what we're going to go ahead and do is we're actually going to let this come up to a boil and simmer for a little bit, bring the temperature down, and then fish out all the big herbs and stuff. So we can go ahead and start adding the vegetables. Okay, now that the muffins are done, we're going to, how you know that they're done is that you take a toothpick and you stick it in. And if it comes out with dough on it, then it's not done yet. But since it's come out clean, they're done. These took a little bit longer than I thought. These actually took about 40 minutes at 350. So we'll go ahead and put these in on a cooling rack and get the next batch ready to go in. Now that the stock is already flavored and it's to your taste, you want to go ahead and bring this back up to not necessarily a boil, but a really nice hot temperature, because now we're going to be starting to add the vegetables. Now what I'm doing is I'm actually adding 1 onion. This is a yellow onion. You can use any onion you want. One jar of snow peas. I grew these myself and canned them. This is my last jar. And since it's January, at the end of January, I can start planting these again. One jar of radish. These are the radishes that I canned before. They're already soft, so it's not going to take long for them to cook. They're already cooked. And drained potatoes. And pretty much anything in the fridge that needs to go. It either gets, put in the soup, or it gets thrown in the worm farm that I have to become compost. Okay, I found some zucchini. I went ahead and shredded it, drained it, salted it, let it sit for a little bit, and then we're going to add that. And then I have some bok choy that really needs to either be eaten or thrown, so that's going to go in. Now this is some pretty thick soup. Okay, the only thing that is left to actually add into it is the pork slices. You don't have to, I just want to. Now, a local store that we have here is an independently owned store. It's a Korean market. They actually sell pork belly already sliced and ready for what's called Korean barbecue. Now, you can use these any way you want. You can use these for Korean barbecue. You can marinate these, use them on the barbecue, or in a pan and just sear them and use them for sandwiches or whatever you want. It's just sliced pork belly. What I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go ahead and cube these up a little bit and then dump them in the soup. Okay, and there you have it. A kind of like a stew, soup type, more of a hot pot than anything else. Um, but it's enough to feed me and my family for a few days. Um, so long as it's tasty and people like it, it'll go. It'll go quick. This will be about 2, maybe 3 days in my house. Okay, and there you have it. You have enough food here in 2 hours. It took me 2 hours just to do all this. To be able to make a whole bunch of these freezer meals. You've got your soup slash dump soup, stew, whatever you want to call this. You have your muffins, and you have your roasted veggies. Okay, and this will make a lot of these. So you have that recipe made 16 muffins. Your roasted veggies came out nice and roasted. And about a gallon of soup. And I hope you enjoyed this month's worth of freezer meals because it's January, usually it's cold and everybody's freezing. Get the pun? Now, next month for February, I am actually planning on doing a fermenting series of some of my favorites and maybe 1 or 2 new ones. I don't know yet. I am preparing for that right now. And hopefully next week we'll start on something simple, say sauerkraut. See you next time.